There's a quiet kind of arrogance that comes with expertise. The longer we've done something, the more we trust our instincts, and the less we question whether we might be getting it wrong. I've been thinking about that ever since I read the Checklist Manifesto by Dr. Atul Gawande. Because what he reveals is unsettling. In hospitals around the world, major complications dropped 36% and deaths reduced 47%, not because surgeons suddenly became smarter, but because they started using a simple checklist system. And that forced me to confront something uncomfortable about avoidable human error, and about myself. I'll be honest, when I first picked this up, I expected a productivity book. Something about staying organized, getting things done. The title alone had me picturing a neat little to-do list on someone's fridge. But within the first few pages, Gawande had already pulled me somewhere far more serious. He opens in an operating room. He's a surgeon himself, and he writes with the kind of quiet authority that only comes from someone who has stood at that table, who has felt the weight of high-stakes decisions with another person's life literally in his hands. And what he reveals is uncomfortable. Even among the most skilled top professionals in the world, people are still dying. Not from lack of knowledge. Not from lack of training. From simple, preventable mistakes. That realization hit me slowly. Because Gawande isn't writing about incompetence. He's writing about the limits of human cognition under pressure. And that, I realized, is a story that belongs to all of us. What surprised me most was how far his research takes him. This isn't just about medicine. It's about the aviation industry, the construction industry, finance, any field where complexity stacks layer upon layer and small errors can cascade into catastrophe. Across every domain, the pattern is the same. Complexity outpaces memory. And somewhere in that gap, things fall through. The book's central argument is elegant in its simplicity. We live and work in a world of extreme complexity, and our brains, however capable, were never designed to hold all of it at once. Gawande calls checklists a kind of cognitive net. Not a replacement for intelligence, but a safeguard against its blind spots. What really struck me was his exploration of aviation. Pilots, professionals trained for years, responsible for hundreds of lives, have relied on checklists since the 1930s. Not because they lack skill, but because they understand that in high-stakes environments, memory is fragile. There's something deeply humbling about that. Professional discipline in this context isn't about ego. It's about responsibility. Then Gawande brings this insight back into medicine through a World Health Organization initiative he helped develop. A short checklist read aloud before surgery. Confirm the patient. Confirm the procedure. Confirm the equipment. Nothing revolutionary. And yet the results were staggering. Major complications dropped 36%. Deaths reduced 47%. I remember pausing when I read that. Because those numbers represent real people. Families. Futures that continued instead of ending. All because someone decided that pausing for a checklist was worth it. What I appreciated deeply is that Gawande doesn't romanticize this change. Doctors resisted. Many felt it was beneath them, an amateur tool for people who didn't know what they were doing. That distinction between amateur versus professional becomes one of the most powerful ideas in the book. He argues that true professionalism isn't about appearing flawless. It's about building systems that protect you from your own fallibility. Another insight that shifted my thinking was his distinction between complicated problems and complex ones. Complicated problems follow clear steps, like constructing a building. Complex problems involve uncertainty, like raising a child or diagnosing a rare illness. A checklist, he explains, doesn't eliminate uncertainty. It clears mental clutter so judgment can operate where it's truly needed. That reframed everything for me. A checklist isn't about turning your brain off. It's about freeing your brain for the decisions that actually require wisdom. There's also a powerful human layer woven through the book. Before surgery, teams began introducing themselves by name and role. That small ritual made people more likely to speak up if they noticed a mistake. The checklist became more than a memory aid. It became a communication bridge, a signal that everyone's voice mattered. And that idea lingered with me long after I finished reading. Because it speaks to something bigger than productivity. It speaks to humility, to collaboration, to the quiet courage of admitting we don't trust ourselves completely and building safeguards anyway. By the time I finished the Checklist Manifesto, I felt changed in a way I didn't expect. Not dramatically, but foundationally. It made me look at my own work differently. Where was I relying purely on confidence? Where was I assuming experience was enough? Where could a small intentional pause prevent an avoidable mistake? What Gawande ultimately offers isn't a trick for efficiency. It's a philosophy of responsibility. The world is complex. High-stakes decisions surround us in hospitals, boardrooms, classrooms, and even in our homes. And none of us are immune to cognitive overload. But instead of responding with anxiety, he invites us to respond with design. Build better systems. Create pause points. Embrace structure without shame. I've started to see checklists not as bureaucratic tools, but as acts of care. Care for the people affected by my work. Care for the standards I want to uphold. Care for the version of myself that wants to show up with consistency, not just confidence. There's something deeply empowering about that. Excellence, I realized, isn't just talent or intelligence. It's professional discipline. It's the willingness to catch your own blind spots before they cost you, or someone else, something important. Gawande doesn't ask us to be perfect. He asks us to be intentional. And in a world that grows more complex every day, that might be the most powerful habit of all. If this resonated with you, hit like and subscribe to Well-Read Club, where we break down the books that genuinely change the way you think and live.